Okay, Ian, take it away.
I'm going to start my video just for now. I'm going to turn it off because of stability issues. But I'd like to welcome everybody to the show tonight. And how come there we go, that's better. To the event tonight. And I'm Ian Bruce, of course, the executive coordinator of Peninsula Stream Society, now doing business as Peninsula Streams and Shorelines. It's been quite the year. Heat domes and atmospheric rivers, two terms that we hadn't heard before, and now we're dealing with them in the environment. We've had staff leaving. We brought new staff on. Talking about that. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is tonight's presentation. It'll be a little bit more from me and then staff reports and then questions and answer. It's been my pleasure and honor to have served in this position for 20 years and 3 days. So we incorporated May 15th, 20 years ago. So, and I'd like to thank the thousands of volunteers, donors, members, and supporters that have made this journey possible. My goal personally in the mid-1990s as a professional biologist was to change my career path towards helping the environment. And with your help, I've achieved that goal. As you can see from the logo displayed here, that the original 3 municipalities, North Saanich, Central Saanich, and Sydney, has grown now to 10 municipalities that financially and otherwise support Peninsula Streams. So I'd like to thank the councillors and the mayors and the staff of all those municipalities that support us. And I'd just also like to say that we operate in all 13 municipalities. Next slide, please. As you can see, we've got a lot of corporate sponsors as well. Not all of them are up here, but I apologize for any that we've missed. So I'd like to thank all of these sponsors and also all the individual sponsors and donors that have helped over this last year and in the past. And I'd also like to remind everybody we have a legacy fund, so that if you're updating your will or writing a will and you have the opportunity, it would be great to leave a sum of either stocks or bonds or cash or whatever to our legacy fund, so that can be a gift that keeps on giving long after you're gone, but can help support the youth and the environment of Greater Victoria. And of course, this is kept confidential. Next slide, please. So I just like, before we get into the staff presentations, I like to, and I'll introduce them later, just to talk about what a fabulous trip we had this last Saturday out onto Sinanis Island. You can see the group we had here. I took the photo and I didn't realize everybody was squinting so much because of the sun. So that's my bad for that. It was beautiful out there on Sinanis Island, where we did invasive species removal for the 15th year. Not in a row, because we had 2 years off because of COVID, but you'll see photos coming up in the presentations of the camas and the sea blush that were pink and azure colors that were just gorgeous. And in the photo, you'll see Chair Daniel Healy and his wife Jill, and board members Kitty Lloyd and Robbie Smoker Peters, in amongst the other volunteers. So thank you all for that. As well, as you may know, our valued long-term biologist Brian Covell left in this last year and moved back to New Brunswick. We still miss him, his smile, his attitude, and his music. As well, Carmen Pavlov started last April and was a great beach coordinator replacement for Brian. But unfortunately for us, she moved on to a different career path. So thank you both, Brian and Carmen, for your work in the past year. So let's see. Now I'd like to introduce you to Kyle Armstrong, who will be our first presenter, and a little bit of bio about Kyle. He's got an undergraduate degree from UVic and an MSc in ecological restoration from SFU BCIT. And he is an estuary beach specialist and has taken on the role of, well, lots of things. You're going to see what he's been up to. So take it away, Kyle. Thank you. Next slide, I guess.
Hi, everyone. Just diving right in here. So for my presentation, I'll be going over our beach program, as well as some shoreline restoration initiatives, and into the Swan Creek systems and rain gardens. Next slide, please. So beginning with the beach program, which stands for Beach Education and Conservation Habitat. Just a fantastic program that, you know, focuses a lot on education, research, restoration, and, you know, has many parts and aspects to the program, including forage fish sampling. If you don't know what a forage fish is, it's simply basically a trophic level, but in our case locally here and for our focus, it includes the surf smelt as well as the Pacific sandlines, two species of fish that essentially work to take smaller food in the ecosystem and transfer it up the food chain to bigger fish. So on the right there, you can see a rhinoceros auklet with some species of forage fish in its mouth, including the sandlines and I believe a herring. Next slide, please. So a big part of this beach program is in fact our forage fish community science sampling, in which volunteers go out to the beaches and sample for eggs and try to identify beaches where these species of forage fish are spawning. They are obligate beach spawners, so they need the beach to spawn, particularly in the upper levels of the beach. This program has been incredibly successful. We have over 50 regular volunteers that are you know, going out in about 15 different teams. This past year alone, we had 25 training events with over 200 participants trained in this past year. So, you know, we've had huge amounts of outreach and being able to engage with tons of different community scientists across our region, and are essentially just training them to look at the beaches through that forage fish lens and beginning to see some of the impacts and some of the changes through that lens, which is really important. They become our eyes and ears on the beaches, alerting us to spills and debris, developments, and all sorts of things, advocating for that beach health. So it's been a really important program and activity, and it's continuing to grow and inform managers about all sorts of important things about our beaches. Next slide, please. So just some sampling highlights. This program's been around since 2018. It started off, you know, quite small and modest, and since then has grown. And we're just one group of many across the Salish Sea and beyond that are looking into, you know, where these fish and when these fish spawn on our beaches. Since 2018, you know, we've put up some incredible numbers compared to kind of our colleagues in other networks across the region. And that's just testament to this great group of volunteers that we have in our region. We've done 700 samples across 90 different beaches, 150 different sites through those beaches, with 122 positive detections of surf smelt spawning and 11 detections of Pacific sandlines. So that's, you know, quite a few beaches. Next slide, please. Being identified. Oh, okay, sorry, I guess that photo got deleted. And so, you know, that map is essentially lighting up with beaches that are positive where these species and when these species are spawning. This past year, we have had, you know, a breakout year, and thanks in large part to our beach program coordinator, who's since moved on, Carmen Pavlov, and to our terrific team of citizen science, community scientists. We've done 365 samples this past year, so pretty much one per day, which is outstanding, across 75 beaches or 100 sites across those beaches, and with detections of 55 surf smelts and 6 Pacific sandlines spawning events, pardon me. So again, just a breakout year, and just thank you so much for all of this hard work by our community scientists. This is just the engine that is pumping this program. Next slide, please. Part of the beach program, what we also do is beach and stream cleanups. And we were not dormant this past year. We had many beach cleanups, some of them emergency response to shipwrecks, others quite large, others smaller. COVID, of course, we weren't allowed to gather in huge numbers, but we still found ways to kind of come out and clean some of our local beaches and respond to some of the threats of these shorelines. We were also able to go into the Colquitt's River system and do kind of a decentralized clean through there. And at the same time assess a few of the spawning reds, so a couple birds with one stone. Continuing to make a very large impact. We're going out throughout North Saanich, Pat Bay, Tryon Beach, as well as Cadboro Bay down in Oak Bay. So quite a spread out effort, and we look forward to doing more of this. And again, with our volunteers, our citizen science volunteers being our eyes and ears, we hope to find more, or we don't hope to, but when we do find more of this debris on beaches, we hope to be able to mobilize and respond and do some more cleanups. Next slide, please. Another aspect of the program that we're just sort of dipping our toes into is eDNA sampling. So Hakai Research Center on the North Island and Central Coast has begun doing some community science eDNA sampling, for which we had a kind of a training session, also collaborative sciences, and are beginning to implement. This is quite a useful tool. It can basically tell us where the fish are present and where they are. So there are certain areas where we're not sure if they're still around. So below is kind of the data that you get. You get these positives of whether or not eDNA was detected for those species. This is from Coles Bay, so you can see where in Coles Bay their DNA has been found. We hope to take this to 3 different sites within Victoria Harbour, including the Middle Harbour, the Gorge, and up at the head in Portage Inlet. Next slide, please. And so this will really help to inform some of our restoration efforts, not only the spawning surveys, but also the eDNA. It will help to let us know where these fish are and where their habitat uses are being utilized, pardon me, as well as, throughout time, we're able to monitor their use. One such site is Portage Inlet. We hope to have a restoration project here happening this summer. We'll be bringing in loads of sort of a forage fish friendly sediment mix for where it's been eroded. A lot of these back armoring of shorelines is called the erosion of these sediments in which they spawn. So we'll be bringing those nourishment sediments in and placing them on the shoreline. We'll be working to do some backshore plantings and perhaps some living shoreline aspects of this project, and continuing to monitor to see how habitats are being used at the head of Portage Inlet. Next slide, please. Some past work that we've done over the past year has been work in Hospital Creek, which is just down from Portage Inlet Linear Park Beach at the head of Portage Inlet, where we engaged the citizens there and did some restoration of Hospital Creek Marsh. As you can see, this marsh has a number of kind of things happening on it. In particular, there was these hyperabundant populations of geese and ducks that were being fed by the residents, and really just accumulating in high numbers on what was a very quickly eroding marsh. So we kind of sprang to action. We did an information campaign where we educated about the impacts of feeding these hyperabundant geese populations, which are really, a hybridized subspecies or species. And, as I said, hyperabundant and having huge impacts on our marshes and some of our ecosystems regionally. So just educating that neighborhood about that. We then also had some riprap that one citizen had kind of done to try to protect their bank from wave force. So we kind of would like to address that. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, like I said, we sprang into action. We organized the groups. We bought a whole bunch of native marine riparian plants and planted them along the back shore. We removed all of that cement riprap and took it to an aggregate recycling depot and replaced it with kind of a rounder alluvial stone to help still protect that bank. But when we do have some nourishment materials coming in this summer, will be a much more natural design. We also work to build a goose exclosure. So using kind of posts and plastic fencing, we were able to kind of block off the marsh and protect it from the geese. And just to, almost as an experiment, just see what would happen. Next slide, please. And these are kind of some of the results. This is a photo on the left, 2 photos of kind of the before. You can see tons of geese and swans and ducks using that marsh piece. Below it, the vegetation cropped basically down to the bud. Not a lot of vegetation there. And after the exclosure, just an explosion in vegetation growth 1 year later. That plays an incredible function in the accretion of these systems and the growing of these systems. So we will continue to monitor this and adapt our treatments moving forward, and can hopefully recover this marsh, which is an important habitat not only for rearing species of salmon and fish, but is also important and serves many ecosystem services, including filtering water, sequestering carbon, and protecting infrastructure, shoreline infrastructure, by attenuating that increase in storm surge and becoming more resilient to sea level rise. Next slide, please. Another project, an exciting project we've been working on, is the Songhees Walkway Pocket Beach. This is located in the middle of Victoria Harbour, just down from Spinnakers, or within Lime Bay Park. Next slide, please. Essentially, this site had seen a lot of modification. On the left, you can kind of see a progression from 1954 through to 1966 below it, and over to the right, present day, the star indicating kind of where our pocket beach is. Huge amounts of infilling and development, basically burying what once was a really rich kind of low-grade sandy gravel complex, beach complex that was culturally and ecologically significant. And kind of burying it below condominiums, hard armoring the shoreline, and really just destroying that what would have been really productive forage fish habitat. Victoria Harbour, as you know, is Lekwungen, which means the place to smoke herring. So forage fish historically having a huge cultural and ecological role in this area. So with the Pacific Salmon Foundation, the BC Stewardship Center, our partners, the Songhees Nation and the Esquimalt Nation, we've partnered to kind of do a beach restoration project at this site. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, previous slide, sorry. Really quickly, just want to, sorry, Francesca, throw a, oh, can we go back? Maybe not. There we go. Just on the right there, I just wanted to point out that red line is the historic shoreline. So just by georeferencing those images, we were able to kind of create a rough kind of outline of where the shoreline used to be. So you can just get an idea of how much modification at the site has occurred. Thanks, Francesca. Next slide, please. So on the left, that's kind of the current conditions, armored shoreline, eroding backshore, invasive species in the backshore, lots of blackberry, people kind of pulling the backshore rocks out and building structures on the beach, within kind of this matrix of Victoria Harbour, which is quite developed and lots of shipping traffic and plane traffic and all these sorts of things happening. On the right is a historic photo taken, I believe, around 1900 of what the shoreline used to look like. You can see it's much lower grade, much finer sediments, people able to land canoes on the beach. And that's something that we want to restore the beach to. So we're going to kind of change the grade. We're going to bring in sediments that are much more friendly to not only the forage fish and their spawning activities, but also to the Songhees and other recreators in the harbor who wish to kind of land their canoes or kayaks on the beach and be able to enjoy the area that way. Next slide, please. Moving on, again, I kind of mentioned before that, the community science and what an impact it makes. And as we identify these different beaches within our area, how important that is and what we can do with that information. So this is kind of a map that just shows, kind of close up a real hotspot for that it's been identified by our community scientists and their sampling for surf smelt. And what's interesting about surf smelt is that they haven't been found spawning in any of the other regions where they've been doing this sampling. So throughout the Salish Sea and on the West Coast, they're finding plenty of Pacific sandlands, but the surf smelt eggs, they're having a difficult time finding. Whereas in our region, it's pretty much all we've found. And in Seaham Harbor, in particular, it's a hotspot. So we have this regionally important area for surf smelt, which is just a critical species within food webs. And so what this has done is it's really inspired our efforts to kind of move into this area. So we don't have anything going right now, but within the next couple of years, we secured some funding to work with the Saicom First Nation and our partners Sea Change Conservation Foundation to really begin looking at these habitats as well as other important habitats in that area and devising a strategy to protect them and restore them. Next slide, please. And within the Shoal Harbor Migratory Bird Sanctuary, you have Seaham Harbor, but you also have Roberts Bay, and this is also part of that kind of hotspot complex. On the left is a photo of Saicom Marine Stewardship. We have Pano, our pro bono drone expert, drone mapping expert, providing his services for Peninsula Stream, Saicom First Nation, and Sea Change to map another quickly eroding marsh in Roberts Bay. So again, these ecosystems are incredibly important for rearing species of fish, blue carbon potential, as well as resilient shorelines. So we're looking to really try to begin to do some restoration of this site, begin to stop the erosion of this marsh, and potentially look at ways where we can facilitate its accretion or expansion seaward and help grow this marsh, thereby increasing the benefits aforementioned. Next slide, please. And this is just a recent figure. So this is the ortho photo, one of the products that Pano with the drone there produced for us. And then Sarah Cook from Sea Change was able to kind of map basically the salt marsh and compare it between years. So in darker purple, that's the remnant marsh that we have today, and salt marsh from 2021 is in the lighter pink. So you can see that even on an annual basis, this marsh is receding very quickly, and action is quite imperative. Anything we do is quite experimental as far as trying to restore this marsh and protect it. There's not a lot of analog for marsh restoration in kind of this open marine environment with lots of fetch and energy coming at from the wave action side of things, as well as an urbanized watershed feeding into it. And so there are risks associated with that. However, there's also the risk of inaction, which from this photo we see is quite severe. So we'll be working with Coastal Geological Services to devise a prescription, though experimental, and begin trialing hopefully this summer. Next slide, please. Another exciting project that we were able to participate in was the Bowker Creek chum reintroduction project. So chum were extirpated from Bowker Creek system for close to 100 years, certainly many decades. And Peninsula Stream Society with the Gold Stream Hatchery, DFO, as well as the Friends of Bowker Creek, devised this plan to basically build a nice gravel shoal habitat, basically creating a nice area for spawning and the conditions that chum would like to spawn in. We were almost blown out completely by the November floods. However, one area remained, and we were able to, taking chum eggs collected by the Gold Stream Hatchery, basically sink it in that kind of tray you see in the bottom right there, filled with eggs, and monitor it. And next slide, we'll see if this works. This spring, yeah, there we go. This spring we had some chums. So we had the Ailvins coming out of the gravel and coming into Bowker Creek, which was, you know, if you didn't read the headlines, a really exciting thing locally and regionally. And, you know, just really an inspiring piece. There's been lots of work to be done up to this point to restore Bowker Creek, and there's still lots of work to be done before it's a functioning kind of salmon-bearing stream. But this is an important step, and one we were really happy and proud to be a part of with our partners. Next slide, please. And Swan Creek, another great project we were able to be involved with our partners, Coastal Collaborative Sciences, as part of the Conservation Economic Stimulus Initiative. Pardon me, there's a lot of acronyms and lots of big words, but essentially we were able to do a planting party with the Friends of Swan Creek, as well as the District of Saanich. And this is just on the Swan Creek as a tributary of the Colquitts, just up from kind of the Mackenzie interchange there. And then it feeds into the Colquitts and runs into the Portage Inlet there. Basically the red zone there is the area that we restored. It was essentially a monocrop of blackberry, Himalayan blackberry, invasive species with very low ecological value to the system. And what we wanted to do was basically remove that and replant it with basically your healthy riparian native plants and set a trajectory of kind of a healthy succession for native plant species and a healthy riparian. Next slide, please. Saanich played a great role and partner in this and provided a lot of support. They sent their kind of natural areas crew in and they brushed down all of the blackberry. Peninsula Streams and Coastal Collaborative Science in Austin, Katrina, basically came in and we dug out all of the blackberry hearts of the root system. So Saanich chopped it down and we came in and dug it out. Then with the Friends of Swan Creek, we had a great planting party with plants supplied by Satin Flower Nurseries, and we're able to plant you know, I think over 100 different plants, kind of really increasing the diversity, not only of this one site, but Swan Creek in general. It'll be a really great source population for many different species that should be there, but, you know, have since been extirpated. Yeah, so it's a really great event. We had lots of people coming out of all ages doing their planting. And then Saanich came in and put in some trees for us as well, and we'll be taking on the watering, which is always a difficult thing for groups like us to do, is that continual watering of sites. So Saanich taking that on for us, so thank you to them, and what a great partnership and collaboration that was. Next slide, please. We've also been revamping our rain gardens project. We have the Rain Gardens for Headwaters project, as well as partnering with Bowker Creeks, the Friends of Bowker Creek, and their ambitions to have 1,000 rain gardens. So we've planned 3 rain gardens in the Monterey Middle School, as well as 2 at Campus View in the Bowker Creek Headwaters, where we'll be essentially turning turf into gardens that will absorb, filter, hold water, and release it slowly back into the watersheds. It's a really great partnership with the school district, 61. And we've also been going into classes and engaging with the community, trying to get them involved on the design. So really how we can get the community to build more of these, because 1 or 2 of these will provide some benefit to the local creeks, but it's definitely an ecology of scale. If we can get everyone building these across sectors, you can really see, and it's been documented, that there can be a really large impact of benefit to our local streams and water supply. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. With that, I'll pass it on to Katrina.
Hi, everyone. All right, thanks, Kyle. Right, well, I am Katrina. I'm the Freshwater and Water Quality Coordinator for Peninsula Streams. And I'm just going to briefly chat to you a little bit about the projects I've been working on for the last little bit, as well as talk about some of the projects I'm currently working on that will be done through the summer and the fall as well. Next slide, please. So first off, just a little bit about the grants and funding. Of course, this is a very important part of project planning. These are just some of the project or grants that I was involved with, and we were quite successful, or fairly successful. We gained some funding for the projects involving the restoration of the floodplain and stream in the Lower Hagen region, so on the former Woodwind property. And I'll talk about that in just a second, as well as several successful applications with the Pacific Salmon Foundation for water quality, millstream, restoration and millstream watershed, as well as the Colquets, and then others, of course, as well. And then still, of course, waiting for some big ones from Environment Canada, which will then kickstart some really exciting projects as well. Next slide. So one big project that I've been working on basically since I started with Peninsula Streams is within the Kiwanis watershed. So I've been doing a habitat assessments of both Hagen and Graham Creek. So about 20 kilometers of those streams were walked by myself, as well as interns from the SESI group. And we were assessing the quality of fish habitat, as well as other in-stream features as well. I just completed the final report, and I'll talk about that in just a sec, but this will be then coupled with another assessment that will look at the distribution and population of coastal cutthroat trout within the Kiwanis watershed. So both of these assessments will then give us a much better idea of which reaches within this watershed should be prioritized for restoration and enhancement activities to maximize the benefit to these coastal cutthroat trout. And then within the Kiwanis watershed, we also will be revitalizing the Kiwanis Community Stewardship Group. We will be working on this this summer, so look for some community meetings happening. And with this group, we will be helping them and supporting them in monitoring, as well as kickstarting some restoration projects within the watershed as well. So yeah, look for more details on that coming soon. Next slide. So with the final report just completed this March, I basically described 17 reaches of Hagen and 22 reaches of Graham Creek. So lots of information was gathered. And overall, the quality of habitat was quite mixed out throughout the whole watershed. So of course, we had some really amazing fish habitat within, of course, more natural areas, parks. For example, Centennial Park had some really great fish habitat. And then others that have been severely impacted by anthropogenic activities. So agricultural and development and other activities as well. So just a couple examples of areas that could definitely use some restoration. You can see in the photos here, the one on the left is Willows Way, so near Wallace Drive. This was a really interesting spot, as it's quite impacted, as you can see, but we saw a lot of cutthroat trout fry there. So definitely some opportunities to restore that area, to increase the habitat complexity, and to give them some cover could be some options there. Well, something that we will be looking at. And then at the right, this one was on someone's private property, but you know, heavily impacted by agriculture activities. And again, we saw some fry near that spot. So some opportunities for restoration as well. Next slide. So one section of Hagen, Lower Hagen Creeks. So this is a 1.2 kilometer section that is on the Woodwind Farm property off of West Saanich. This area was recently restored to Sartlip First Nation, and they invited us onto the property in October of last year to do the assessment, as well as to discuss some possible restoration of this area. And so after the assessment, it was definitely obvious that some work needed to be done. It was heavily impacted by agriculture. and other farming activities. And so we are right now in the process of engaging Sartlip First Nation, and we are using an approach called two-eyed seeing, which basically involves, looking at a project through two different lenses, one with the Indigenous lens, and then another with the Western science. So we will be engaging with Sartlip elders and youth and other community members, and ensuring that their vision of this area is restored. So we're just at very beginning stages right now, but this is a really extensive project and really exciting project that will definitely be continuing over the next few years. Next slide, please. Sorry, it's very bright. I'm getting kind of blinded here. So another project within the Central Saanich area was a really, really fun day where we released about 5,000 coho fry within Tateit and Todd Creek. Really great day where that involved many different community members. We had folks from Sartlip First Nation as well as Sayout, and other community members, of course. Lots of kids running around helping us release the fry into these creeks. And of course, this was all done with the amazing support from Goldstream Hatchery. Definitely something hopefully we can continue in the future. It was great to get so many different groups come together for such a great cause of bringing the fish back into these creeks. Next slide, please. So I am also doing several different projects within the Millstream Creek watershed, one being a larger project, restoration project of the floodplain and stream just below the Atkins Road Fishway. We're just in the midst of project planning, working with engineers and of course with the CRD as well, of planning out how to reconnect the floodplain to Millstream. Now this would have some really important protection against heavy flooding, which occurred in Millstream and caused a lot of damage. So reconnecting and utilizing the floodplain to what it's supposed to be doing is definitely a really important activity that we are trying to do, and hopefully in other areas as well. We'll also be doing some repairs on the fish ladder from the big heavy flooding in November. There were some damage, so we'll be looking at repairing that as well this summer. Again, we are currently in the planning phase with an engineer. And then similar to the Kiwanis watershed, we also will be establishing a stewardship group. So within the Millstream Creek watershed. So we are hopefully having our first community meeting in June sometime, where folks can come out, ask us questions, as well as let us know if you're interested in joining that group. So look for more details about that soon, or you can contact us directly as well. Next slide. Another project I'm working on within the Millstream related to restoration, of course, and is an important step before all that can begin, is to complete habitat assessments. So again, similar to Kiwanis, mapping out all the habitats within the stream, basically throughout all of Millstream, looking for restoration opportunities, and then of course looking for fish as well. That will be done later this summer. So part of Millstream had already been assessed by Brian as well as Tamara, who is actually one of our new hires. And so we're just completing the last few sections now. To date, about 3 kilometers of highlands have been done, and then just 3 kilometers left in the lower section of Atkins Road. So there's just a siren going by. You can switch to the next slide. So we also back in March pit tagged coho fry. So that's essentially we insert a tiny little radio tag into these fish, and then we set up an array, so like a sensor at the Atkins Road Fishway, that when a fish passes over it, the array can sense what day and which fish moved across that sensor. So this really gives us a lot of information of how long the fish are taking to basically swim from upstream where they were released, which was quite a ways from the array, how long it's taking them to swim past the array and out to sea. And so approximately 2,000 fish were released in March, and to date, only about 500 have passed, which is quite a low number considering that amount of time. And with speaking with the folks who installed the array, the BC Conservation Foundation, he wasn't quite sure why it's taking so long. One hypothesis was because of our cold spring, the fry seemed to be taking a little bit longer, perhaps getting more food or whatnot, but we're not really sure exactly. So definitely more monitoring needs to be done. I go every week to download the data and see what's happening with those fish. So definitely more to come about that. And next slide. Another watershed I've been doing a lot of work in is the Colquitts. We are doing a big restoration project within the main stem Colquitts River. Back in 2019 and 2020, Peninsula Streams was involved with restoring a large section within Copley Park, and we are continuing that. So really extending that really nice habitat within a fish-bearing stream. So really important work. We're going to be doing another 120-meter section this summer, building several riffles, creating better pool habitat, lots of habitat complexing will be happening, as well as improving the riparian area as well. So definitely some volunteer opportunities will come through this, particularly with the planting and the removing of invasive species, and then lots of other stuff as well. We'll also be doing a little bit more work in Gabo Creek, which is one of the tributaries that lead right at that intersection there on the picture you can see. So the one going off to the right is Gabo, really important tributary to the main stem. We'll be doing some work in there as well. Next slide. And then we're still within the Colquitts watershed. We'll be doing some restoration within Halliburton Brook. So this is the lower section within the Elk Beaver Lake Park. We'll be working with the bees, really great partnership. They've been doing amazing work of removing invasive species very systematically. So we'll be working with them to continue restoration more within the in-stream section. So we'll be building some riffles to improve water quality, as well as removing invasives within the riparian quarter, cleaning up obstructions to fish passage, as well as installing a staff gauge that will help us monitor water levels, which gives us really important data, particularly during drought conditions. So you can go to the next slide, please. And finally, water quality. Just a quick update. We are continuing our monthly water sampling within Central Saanich. So we do every month sampling within Tate as well as Hague and Graham. We've been doing this for over 20 years. We have lots of data, but of course, with being urban streams, they deal with a lot of issues. I have noticed over the last year, some slight improvements. For example, within Tate, Pico coliform, really big issue with urban streams, but within this last year, we had 8 out of the 12 sampling events were over the guideline limit. Is a lot, definitely an issue, but this definitely is an improvement from 2020, where we had 10 out of the 12 months being over the guideline limit. So even that slight improvement is something that we look for. It can be rare within these really highly impacted streams. Other improvements was with TEH, which is total extractable hydrocarbons. So basically oils and other nasty stuff, other hydrocarbons essentially that have huge impacts on fish and other wildlife living within the streams. In 2021, we had 2 out of the 12 sampling events over the guidelines, which is improvement from 5 in 2020. So that's a really big improvement. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that stuff is nasty. So not seeing that as much is really good news for sure. And then some metals, we also in 2021 did not see any cadmium, lead, or arsenic, which is improvement from last year where we did have those show up several times. So really great news to see those even slight improvements. But yeah, definitely more monitoring needs to happen. And within the Quanis water quality, definitely still some troubling results. So we definitely will be looking at revitalizing the Keating Industrial Area Stewardship Program. We had done this in 2001, where we approached many of the businesses along Keating and in the Keating industrial area to educate them about stormwater management, basically telling them, you know, if you're dumping this into the storm drain, this goes into this fish bearing stream and can have heavy impacts. And actually after that program in 2001, we did notice a slight increase in water quality. So we will be looking at doing this again, of course, with partnership with District of Central Saanich as well to really try and remediate these areas. Next slide. So for next steps with water quality, data management, of course, is a big one. And I've talked about this in previous presentations. I am currently in the midst of uploading all of our data onto DataStream, which is a really great visual way of seeing how the water quality has changed, great way of sharing it, and just, yeah, much more accessible. So once that is finished, I'll be looking at setting up a water quality committee meeting, talking with other groups doing water quality, determining what their issues are, and if they're interested also in using this database, that it can then help upload their data as well. Of course, as we mentioned, with the establishment of new stewardship groups, we'll also be supporting them with equipment, water quality equipment, to help them start their own monitoring programs, as well as give them stream keepers training so they know what they're doing. And then finally, as I mentioned, the Keating Industrial Area Stormwater Management Program, also hoping to revitalize that to deal with some of the water quality issues. So lots of exciting projects on the horizon, very busy, but yeah, really excited and very much looking forward to more volunteer events to see all you guys out there helping us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katrina. I want to introduce Francesca. Francesca's been a long-term employee of Peninsula Streams. I think you've been around with us since 2008. I just saw a photo of you from then, and you were so young. Anyway, Francesca is a graduate of the Environmental Technology program from the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, as well as having a BSc of Environmental Science from Royal Roads University. And she is now our administrative coordinator as well as her stewardship coordinator, and is ably passing off some of the education coordination to Shelley. And we'll talk about that a little later. So take it away, Francesca. Tthank you for all you do.
Great, thanks, Ian. Yeah, so, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. And just for those who joined in a little bit later, if you could type your full name, first and last name, into the chat window, just so that we have a record of who attended, and we can get in touch with you if need be. So my presentation will be short and sweet. As Ian mentioned, I do a lot of the administrative work, sort of behind the scenes things, which is not all that fascinating to talk about, let's just say that. But I do have my hands in a lot of the different pots in supporting all of our wonderful staff on their projects and programs. Some of the things that I'm more directly involved in are still environmental education. And I'm happy to report that our grade 3 program is now back in action after a 2-year hiatus. So we just started on Tuesday, was our first school, and our program delivery team will be at hopefully 10 schools over the next 3 weeks. I'm just waiting for a couple last schools to get scheduled in. Also, I'll give just a really brief membership update, fundraising update, and show you some stats from what we've been doing over the last year. So yeah, our grade 3 education program established in 2006, where we visit schools all over Greater Victoria and teach the students about watersheds and water pollution and about the Pacific salmon life cycle. And here we have our 3 new staff getting trained up on the watershed model at Mackenzie School. And yeah, hopefully this year we'll engage up to about 650 students. And so that's the grade 3 program, which happens in the spring. This fall, we hope to be back in action with our grade 6-7 program, where we spend a full day with each school doing invasive species removal and have a whole indoor program as well, including Enviro Jeopardy and workshops with where we invite other organizations such as the Compost Education Center, Life Cycles Food Security, to deliver their programming to the schools. So yeah, that is hopefully on the roster for the fall. Hopefully conditions favor us for that program. And then these are just some photos of our wonderful volunteers, some of you who are here tonight. I think I see Marjorie, Marjorie's video here. And yeah, so we were at Colquitt's Middle School in the fall and hopefully returning again this fall. Short or quick membership update. We did membership, the membership committee did a very successful membership drive over the winter. And I think I see our membership chair, Jocelyn, here tonight. I want to give huge thanks to Jocelyn for a really dedicated effort to increasing our membership numbers. We're currently at 303 members. All of you are here tonight. Thank you so much for becoming a member. And yeah, some of the perks of membership are member-only events such as this, and some volunteer work parties are restricted to members, and we're hoping to spruce up the membership package going forward, possibly partnering with local businesses to offer discounts, but that's still in the works, but we'll keep you posted. Oh, and in the fall as well, we did one of our volunteers, who's a professional videographer, created some short testimonials from some of our members. Unfortunately, this one doesn't seem to be able to play, but they are all on our YouTube channel. And we are looking for more folks who are interested in working with us to create a 15 to 30-second video on why you are a member of Peninsula Streams and what brought you here, and yeah, so if anybody's interested in that, please reach out, because we will be planning a recording session later on this year. And there we go. We held an online silent auction earlier this spring, and we had a fabulous fundraising committee. I think, yeah, Sean, you're here tonight. Sean did an excellent job garnering many cash donations from corporate sponsors. So thank you very much, Sean. And we had an amazing variety of items to bid on: fishing experiences, jewelry, food and beverage, etc. And we raised, what we got, a little over 50,000 from the silent auction and from the cash donations. So yeah, that went really well. And then just to round up my presentation, got some stats here from 2021. Where we did 7 beach cleanups. So we have hopefully a lot of beach cleanups on the agenda for this summer and fall. We did 15 stream and riparian restoration work parties. I think it's actually a few more than that. These are all the groups that we work with and support. We submitted 59 grant applications in 2021. And we had our volunteers contributed over 4,000 volunteer hours. And that's the breakdown according to project. And that compares to about 3,600 in 2020 and about 35 in 2019. So what's next for me? I'm in the process of helping to plan the AGM, which is not this Saturday, but the following Saturday from 1 to 3. You all should have, as members, should have received the invitation, which went out last Friday by email. We hope you can make it. You can attend by virtually on Zoom, or you can attend in person. Yeah, please RSVP if you're able to make it. Also planning with the events committee for an event in the fall to honor and show appreciation for our volunteers and donors. And then of course the grade 6 program also hopefully happening in the fall. So thanks again for attending. And that's the end of my portion. I'll pass it back over to Ian for him to introduce. Thank you, John. For him to introduce the next presenter.
Okay, okay, thank you, Francesca. And I'd like to introduce Tamara Bonsdorf, who's an environmental support technician.
Oh, Ian, Shelley's next on the.
Oh, sorry. I'm bad. I'd like to introduce Shelley Selivanov, who is our education outreach coordinator. She was hired just recently, and she has a BSc and an MSc in geography from UVic. And she's just joined us, and she's already been doing some great things. So take it away, Shelley.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today. So as Ian mentioned, I just finished at UVic, so I had a contract position in the Office of Campus Planning and Sustainability, working as their communications and reporting coordinator. And I just joined the Peninsula Streams and Shoreline team about 3 weeks ago. So pretty new, but I have already been able to undertake a lot of projects and participate in a lot of projects that we do. So first of all, that's a picture on Sinanas Island. So that was one of the events that I was able to attend. But in terms of education, I've been part of the grade 3 education program with Tamara and Austin, which you will hear about shortly. We were also able to participate in some fry release programs with grade 2s and 3s at Ray Creek to release some of the fry that they have raised from eggs in their incubator programs. I've also been able to participate in various outreach events, such as the Earth Day celebration with Sekum and Sayot First Nations, and they're hoping to make this an annual event. So this included 2 beach cleanups, as well as a tabling event with various partner organizations to be able to talk about the Earth and all the work that we're doing. I was also able to attend a hospital creek tour with Kyle to be able to meet some of the partners that we work with. The Sinanas work party as well to meet some of the volunteers and some of you as well, and to remove some invasive species after 2 years of not being there. Also this week, Ian and I attended the Yellowfish storm drain painting with the Girl Guides in Sydney. So we were able to help them paint the yellowfish on near storm drains and hand out promotional posters and flyers and stickers to be able to talk to people near the storm drains and remind them that anything that we pour down the drain does affect the entire ecosystem as well. So that was a really great time and they really enjoyed it. I was also able to attend the Vital Youth year-end celebration with Ian as well. So this is through the Victoria Foundation. So we received a grant actually through Parkland Secondary School, as they chose us to be a grant recipient. So it's really great to meet the students and attend the event. It was their first in-person event in a couple of years, so it was great to collaborate and meet other organizations. And as part of that, next slide, please. I also created a thank you video just to be thankful for the grant that they gave us. And this is actually located at Colquitt Creek. And you can actually, if you're walking by, you can actually see where the water flows from, and also the different drawings of salmon that the kids have done as well. If you'd like to play the video. There's no sound.
Yeah, sorry, it's the sound is playing on my end, so obviously there's some internal switch that hasn't been flipped, and it might take some time to try to figure it out. So maybe I'll try to figure it out at the end once we do the Q&A section, or if not, we'll share it via email to everybody.
There should be an option where you go to share your video to like check a little box that allows you to share sound as well.
Okay. I don't immediately see it.
It would be in the same place to share screen. There's an option to share screen with the sound.
Oh, here we go. Right. Thank you. Let's try this again.
Large fish spawning surveys and beach seining. It has also allowed us to hire new staff such as myself so that I can engage with Greater Victoria secondary students to gather ideas for developing our environmental education programs. Thank you so much for helping us give back to the community while empowering young environmental philanthropists of tomorrow and inspiring the ones coming after them.
Perfect, and I'll get the next slide.
On behalf of Peninsula Streams and Shorelines, we would
Perfect, and this is just a video picture from the Yellowfish with the Girl Guides, and you can see they're very excited and they had such a great time, and they were very efficient at passing around the information as well. So if you're ever walking around in Sydney near West Haven, you might be able to see some yellowfish. So that was ones that they painted themselves. Next slide, please. So I've also been part of working on some of our communications, so developing some posters and also taking photos at some of the events that I've been part of, just to be able to tell our story and some of the amazing work that we're doing, because there is so much, as you've already heard, that we are working on. So that includes social media, taking photos and creating posters. And that right there is a picture of Austin actually on his first day, diving right into working with some of the students during the fry release and teaching them about invertebrates. Next slide. Also, I've been able to take both level 1 and level 2 of Green Shores training and certification through the BC Stewardship Center. And this has allowed me to gain the knowledge to be able to participate in some of the beach restoration projects that Kyle has mentioned earlier, and to be able to develop shorelines that work with nature rather than against them as we move towards climate change. Next slide. So what is next? So first of all, if you see some pictures, here is some sea blush and some camas. So just a beautiful field on Salinas Island. So hopefully if we are having future work parties, hopefully you get a chance to attend them. So what is coming up next? So as Francesca mentioned, we are right in the middle and starting off our Grade 3 education program. So over the next few weeks, I will be going with Tamara and Austin to various schools around the peninsula. So we have one tomorrow that we'll be attending. There's also an environmental event on June 5th at the Mary Winspear Center. And it is about acting locally to save the environment, and it's held by the Rotary Club for the Sydney by the Sea. So I'll be participating in a panel discussion actually through Peninsula Streams and Shorelines to just talk about ways that we can live more sustainably in the community. We'll also be going into more website management and helping out with some of the communications with our newsletter and developing more pamphlets, brochures, looking for opportunities for outreach, and of course, taking more photos of our volunteer events and the ways that we engage with the community, and again, ways to tell our stories. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working more with all of you in the future.
Thank you, Shelley. That was great. Appreciate that. And now I'd like to introduce Tamara Bonsdorf, who's our environmental support technician. We're sharing her, as she'll explain, with the Friends of North Saanich Parks. And that's how Katrina came to us a year ago. So it's been a really good recruiting format for us, where we share a student with another organization, much like what we did with CESI and World Fisheries Trust, but a little bit different in this case. Tamara is a recent graduated Camosun College Environmental Technology program, and she's now a student at Royal Roads University, completing a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Practice. Tamara did, as was mentioned by Katrina, did some, as part of her Camosun College project, did a really good job of doing an assessment on Millstream Creek. So when her name came up, I said, let's grab her. So take it away, Tamara. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Ian. So yeah, I'm spending this spring and summer, on this collaborative job as an environmental support technician, where 40% of the time I'm working for Friends of North Saanich Parks and 60% of the time for Peninsula Streams. So the work that I've started with Friends of North Saanich Parks is a soils project, where I've dug soil pits in 8 of the parks to classify and describe the soils. Information taken from the soils helps you understand the history and current state of the parks. And we're hoping it helps to answer the question of why some of the tree stands, mainly cedars, aren't doing well. Soil samples are being tested for moisture content and will be compared to samples that will be taken in the summer. Testing is also underway for carbon and nitrogen content within the soils to compare to the carbon and nitrogen data taken 50 years ago. I'll also be helping with their invasive species removal, including removing and counting how many Daphne seedlings have sprouted within the treatment plots after all of the Daphne was previously removed. Next slide, please. And then for Peninsula Streams, I'll be continuing to assess Millstream Creek. As everyone has mentioned, I had done a project, my final project for environmental technology with Camosun, doing an assessment on Millstream Creek, and I'm excited to continue that work because I've grown up next to this stream my whole life. And the goal with Millstream is to allow salmon access to the upper reaches of the stream, so we note any potential barriers to migration, as well as the quality and quantity of habitat and potential areas for restoration. I'll be involved in the electrofishing that will be a part of the Millstream assessment this summer to determine the location and quantity of salmon species, as well as the Earsman Creek is a part of the Millstream watershed. And I've been helping Camosun Environmental Tech Group do their final project on that creek, which is near Mary Lake up in the Highlands. I've also been assisting in the fish array project that Katrina was talking about earlier at Millstream near Mill Hill, and I'm excited to see those final results. I've started to deliver the grade 3 education on watersheds and the Pacific salmon life cycle, and will continue to do so until the end of the school year. And then I'll also be continuing to help out with the beach program by inputting forage fish data that has been collected by volunteers. And that's all from me, so thank you.
Great, thank you, Tamara. And I should note too that Tamara is only being with us for a month, I think, if that. So both Shelley and Tamara have accomplished so much in such a short period. So thank you for your work. And now I'm going to introduce Austin Nolan, who was even a shorter term employee. And Austin's environmental support technician, has a BSc from UVic, majored in biology and minored in environmental sciences. And since he's graduated, he worked with the Community Economic Stimulus Initiative with Coastal Collaborative Sciences, part of World Fisheries Trust. So he was one of the interns we worked with in 2021. So it was great to, we knew Austin, and it was great to be able to bring him on for at least the summer. And take it away, Austin. Thank you.
So hi, everybody. Again, my name is Austin Nolan, and I'm one of the new environmental support techs. I'm a Vancouver Island local. I was born and raised here, and I got my degree at UVic. Although I'm a new employee with Into the Streams, I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with them on a number of projects over the last year. As Ian said, I was employed by World Fisheries Trust under the Coastal Collaborative Sciences branch as part of the CESI group of interns. And during that time, I was lucky to be associated with many of the projects, including the Woodwind Farm assessment with Katrina, as well as the Hagen-Graham assessments. We got to do some restoration on Goward Springs A, which flows into Viaduct Flats, where me and the other interns planned out some in-stream work on homeowner property with Ian's guidance. I assisted with the waterfowl exposure construction at the Hospital Creek estuary. I was part of lots of things happening at Swan Creek with the restoration there, with the planting party and the gravel additions. And I'm sure there's some other things that I was involved in that I missed. Next slide, please. Over the next 6 months, I'm going to be involved in lots of projects, including some eDNA sampling, which I'm going to be training on tomorrow, and I'll find out a little bit more about. I'll be involved with the grade 3 education program, where we teach about watersheds and the salmon life cycle. I'm planning a restoration project at Lower Halliburton Brook, which Katrina mentioned earlier. I'll be planning this. This is my first one to plan, so I'm under the guidance of Ian and Katrina, and I'm going to be learning from them. We're going to be doing an assessment of Tatayat Creek, particularly within the Saanich Historical Artifact Society property, as they had a couple problems with the atmospheric river. I'll likely be involved with the beach program a little bit, and hopefully I'll get to do some electrofishing in Millstream and the other waterways this summer. And I'm sure there'll be some more things I'll be involved in, so I'm just really looking forward to all of it. And yeah, that's it for me.
Great, thanks. That takes us to the end of our staff presentation. Thank you for listening. Again, I'd like to just remind everybody about the June 5th event at Mary Winspear. You can find out more information about that on our website, also with Sydney by the Sea website. And thanks to, excuse me, Ray Andrews, Sydney by the Sea, for spearheading that, as well as the Saanich Peninsula Environmental Coalition, of which Peninsula Streams is a part. We're working with the other environmental groups to lobby the 3 peninsula municipalities that are undergoing official community plan reviews in order to get them to recognize connectivity of ecosystems and bring in more environmental protection into their OCPs. So again, as you see, we have reminders here. The AGM is on May 28th from 1 to 3. It's a hybrid meeting. There'll be a Zoom invite sent out if you haven't already got it. Contact us if you haven't received it. And I guess I'm just going to open it up for questions. If Francesca, if there's nothing else to